this will be a very quick talk so that we can all go to lunch on time and that Kwang also has time to talk a bit. So yeah, as Justin said, I currently lead the zkVM form verification effort, and generally I'm obviously interested in trying to get a fully formally verified stack at the end of the day, which will be one of the topics of this week. So I normally mention this at the end of my talks, but I thought I would just mention it to start today since we're rushing for time. So I think one goal with all of this is primarily that we're not interested in just formally verifying things for the sake of it and then saying, okay, this is formally verified, let's freeze it, let's never touch it again. The expectation is the stack will continue to move very quickly because a lot of people are doing a great job on engineering side and the research side. And so beyond being able to formally verify specific artifacts that we're very interested in right now, we want to make sure that we're establishing good methodologies and good tooling which can actually be used and which are robust and applicable to a lot of different verification efforts in the future to make our lives broadly easier. The other thing is also that there's a belief on my side, and I think probably a couple of people who are working on this, that form verification and kind of formal reasoning and automated reasoning about code and specifications and all of this actually has some potential benefits on the engineering and research side as well. You can think of a mental model that writing things down helps you with your thoughts, implementing things in code helps you reason a bit more about your writing, and then reasoning about your code with form verification will probably help upstream all of this. And we can probably find ways to either maybe simplify things or find things which are overcomplicated, which can be then upstreamed and simplified on a definition level. And hopefully also if we get actually good tooling and good integration into development workflows, we can get much closer to having maybe a faster development workflow that doesn't require as much auditing and other manual tasks which take up a lot of time and have to be constantly repeated, and they're also not foolproof. So the big focus over the last year also has obviously been this big zkVM form verification project, which has three main tracks. The zkVM track, which is trying to assert that when you have the constraints and the witness generation, these work such that you will only obviously produce a valid proof if the constraints are actually satisfied, and which also maps to the actual computation that you're proving being valid. There's a lot of work going into this. We actually have some very nice results. So we have some RISC-V circuits which are starting to be formally verified against the official RISC-V specification in Lean. There's a bunch of work on using SMT solvers as well, which have been integrated into CI. And then we're trying to unify things a bit with LZK, which is this family of MLAR dialects for circuits specifically. But there's still quite a bit of work to do in terms of both trying to unify things and trying to make the way that we verify these circuits much more robust, particularly in terms of extracting constraints into proof assistance or SMT labels under SMT encoding, and being able to preserve some of the structure from circuits to make proofs much more automatable, which currently they're not very automatable. We've got the EVM track, and this is basically checking that if you take some Solidity code that's been compiled to the EVM, and then you actually lower that to RISC-V, whether you're interpreting it or compiling it one way or another, that we actually verify the RISC-V assembly for this, in the sense that the RISC-V assembly should execute in the same way as a formal spec of the EVM should. There's a difference here. The main challenge here is again scale and handling this over the multiple Rust compiled targets that the zkVMs use, and then beyond that for different EVM implementations once they become more supported by zkVMs. And then the cryptography track, which we'll have a bit more of a focus on this week, and Kwang will talk about next, is around checking that the implementations of proof systems are verified against executable specs, which are actually validated with formalized security proofs, so that typically if you read a paper and it says this construction has ran by runfoundness with these parameters, the construction should be an actual program that's running in Lean, which is actually executable, and so on. Now for all of these, basically we have progress going on. There's more than I can fit into a 15-minute talk, but we have common challenges. One is scale for all of these. So zkVMs, there's multiple circuit DSLs, there's multiple C circuits. Precompiles, if every zkVM starts to have 20 plus precompiles, that's about 120 precompiles total for all the zkVMs you might be interested in. There's the question of auto precompiles and how to verify this, and around compilers in general for circuits. The EVM track, similarly, there's multiple zkVMs who all use different Rust compile targets at the moment, which produce different assembly, and then different EVM implementations that will be coming online soon, as well as the question of how to move beyond the EVM into the kind of broader clients and verifying of this. We obviously saw some bug in REST recently, which was quite critical, and it would be nice to be able to catch these. And then similarly with cryptography, where if you have a huge backlog of cryptography to formally verify, and it would be nice to obviously get to move on with this and to find out, in the future, once we've actually done Freister, some checks Spartan, and some of the others which you use now, if someone comes up with a great new IOP, can we formally verify it before peer review does its job? That would be a nice goal to try and get it done in less than a month would be good. Now, this week we've got 3 sessions. One will be on ArcLib. I'll let Kwong talk about this in a second. Like I said, here you've got a validation of specifications that's done in Lean, and then a verification of Rust implementations that's done in Lean via a tool called Hacks. We've got another session on end-to-end verification, which Julian will be leading. The goal here is to look at how do we actually cover everything that's really required for ZK-VMs on DL1 and beyond. And we've seen, obviously, we've got all the leanVM, leanSig, and leanXYZs. Consensus, obviously, we're not touching at the moment, but it would be nice to get to that if there are obviously a lot of interesting changes coming. And then compilers is something that DARPA was going to bail us out with a verified Rust compiler, and then Trump happened, so now it's on us to get that done. And then we'll also have another session on encoding for pq signatures, which would be a good practical example of how do we move beyond what's currently going on with the verified ZK-VM project into other parts of the scope that will be part of end-to-end form verification. I'll hopefully leave it here. I think I've rushed it enough and I've talked fast enough, and then I'll let Kwong have a bit of time, and hopefully we can all get to lunch at a reasonable hour as well. Thank you. And I guess any questions?
Any questions while we wait for Kwong to get set up? I guess I have a question for you, Alex. In terms of timelines, do you agree that the 3 to 4 years is sufficient to end-to-end formally verify everything?
So I think by end of 2026, we'll have the ZK-VM part of things done, up to things like CUDA kernels we're probably not touching, unless we have a breakthrough in terms of how to address that. So we should have, let's say, formally verified verifiers, formally verified RISC-V circuits and precompiles or auto precompile compiler. That should be okay. Formally verified EVM logging through RISC-V should be okay in terms of at least specific examples of EVMs, and potential caveats when it comes to interacting with the blockchain itself and the host and kind of composing different opcodes. We'll see how we make progress on that. And then for cryptography, we should have formally verified specs for provers, verifiers for all proof systems which are used. And then that should free us up to deal with the compiler stack in 2026, 2027. Hopefully if we do something domain specific, seems doable. And then consensus also seems doable for the specs. Verification of implementations of consensus might be a bit tricky because there'll be another issue of scale and different languages. I think that mostly covers it, and then lead signature and leanVM should be like easier than the current ZK-VM stack, so that should be fine. And we should be able to reuse kind of most of what we're doing for the ZK-VMs now.
Amazing. Very bullish timelines. Thank you. Kwong,